Thank you, Josh, and good morning, everyone. My name is Connie Mamel. I'm formerly with the U.S. Forest Service Forest Health Protection Group, retired in 2019, and I'm delighted to be here. So this morning, we're fortunate to have 6 excellent speakers who are going to talk about our theme of shared stewardship. We'll take a 10-minute break at 10 o'clock and then continue with the speakers, and then we'll have a lunch break from noon to 12:20, and then I hope you'll all come back for a virtual lunch table, and we'll be introduced to the Upper Wenatchee pilot, which is our featured shared stewardship project, and then we'll have a virtual field trip. And later this afternoon, we are fortunate to have acclaimed Northwest author Jack Nisbet to talk about his book, The Dreamer and the Doctor. So our first speaker will be George Geissler, the Washington State Forester and Deputy Supervisor for Wildfire for the Department of Natural Resources. George is a former president of the National Association of State Foresters. And this morning, he'll talk with us about the Washington State Forest Action Plan and the Memorandum of Understanding between the DNR and the U.S. Forest Service. Thank you so much, George.
No problem at all. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak with this group. I'm always excited to speak to fellow foresters. It's very easy to know that in my world lately, the trees that I get to see are the ones on the virtual background behind me a lot more than the real stuff. And I know that all of you are out and doing a tremendous amount of good work on the ground. And they asked me to talk a little bit about the Washington's Forest Action Plan, as well as a little bit about the relevance of our shared stewardship agreement. And this is a topic that I know Chief Christensen and myself have discussed a number of times. As you'll find out, the chief used to be, or all of you know, the chief was the state forester of Washington. So obviously she has a vested interest in all of us. But when you look at what we try to accomplish with our Forest Action Plan, it really boiled down to an opportunity for Washington DNR and the state of Washington. Forest Action Plans were required by the Farm Bill, and this is the rewrite of that original Forest Action Plan that Washington State did. And with the first Forest Action Plan, for most states, it was a rush to get them completed. If you think about where we were 10 years ago, technology and GIS layers and all were nothing like what they are available now. And our abilities to put these together was a challenge. But the whole goal behind a Forest Action Plan was to lay out for the state where our priorities are, what were the issues that we faced, and hopefully set a path forward as to how we as a state altogether would address those issues. So let's fast forward to the current revision of the Forest Action Plan. All of the technology, all of the data is so much better today, as well as our understanding of the issues that we face. Washington State is unique in that we also have been doing this analysis for a while. Most people are familiar with the 20-year Eastern Forest Health Strategy that Washington has, and the 10-year wildfire strategy that we have. And the bottom line is that we had a lot of the data and information already in place. And when the Forest Action Plan was to be developed, my charge to the teams that were doing it was, let's make this so that it is truly the action plan for our state's forest. Let's make certain that we look holistically at East and West, and that also use the information that was in the 20-year forest health and 10-year wildfire strategies to bring all of this together so that we can then speak with one voice. And really the team has done an amazing job of putting all of that together. You know, a lot of the issues and threats that we face are not a surprise to us. In fact, the Forest Action Plan, as you read through it, there are moments where most who are on this Zoom call would probably go, well, we already knew that. But, the point for us was to get this into one spot, to really be able to focus DNR as well as our partners in how we move forward with addressing the issues our forests face. So the issues were those basic things: the climate change, drought, insect disease, wildfire, invasive species, and of course, conversion and forest loss. And being able to look at those and actually see those spelled out in a single document, as well as look at how we could prioritize our work so that we can make the best use of the available resources that we have. And we do have a lot of resources. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. We have great science. We have state and private programs, which are part of our cooperative forestry agreements with the U.S. Forest Service and other partners. We have great interagency agreements with state partners. And really, all of those tools are being brought together as we, as DNR, try to take our steps forward to improve the overall situation and use our resources effectively. And so what really came out for us is that as we looked at our emphasis on wildland fire and forest health in our state, we wanted to make certain that we were bringing additional focus to the lands themselves and the landowners of those forests. If you look at the forest health strategy, if you look at the wildfire strategy, they talk in very broad terms, but what the Forest Action Plan really did was make us look at some of our landowners and say, well, what are their needs right now? And it did create a greater emphasis within DNR, at least, of recognizing the role of small forest landowners in our state. While we do have a small forest landowner office and we have an excellent forest practices division, there is a need for greater work with our small forest landowners and a greater emphasis on helping them not only manage their forests, but conserve them and keep them as working forests in our state. And so we came away with this information of, we have these issues that we want to face, we have strategies, and now we are trying to work together to put our resources where they need to go. And so you think about the MOU that we have related to shared stewardship. And the shared stewardship agreement is a document that was signed between the U.S. Forest Service, our partners, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and DNR. The only reason others were not on there is we couldn't get to them in enough time because we were trying to go through and get this done quickly. But when it was signed in 2019, it was part of a federal administration emphasis on working at the state level in order to accomplish and implement forest action plans. I mean, the whole goals behind shared stewardship of determining the need on a state level, doing the right work at scale, and being science-driven and using all of our tools were messages that resonated with all of us that were in state agencies at the time, as well as most of our partners. And so when you look at what Washington's agreement, we decided that if you look around, we were already doing a lot of interagency cooperation. The partnerships are here, whether it be our collaboratives, our federal partners, or state partners. Folks know each other and are working together. So we looked at an opportunity to kind of put down on paper what we saw as our shared themes. And we looked at the needs for ecological restoration, how to conserve and protect habitat, things like sustainable infrastructure and recreation, and quite frankly, the baseline of healthy communities across our state. And again, this was only designed as a framework to allow us to move forward with our shared vision and shared principles. For us, it really was an opportunity also to stimulate conversations. If you look at our agreement, it doesn't say X number of board feet or X number of acres. It was not intended to. It really was set as a groundwork of stating this is how we work together. And if you think about Washington State, you can look at even the agenda for today. What do you see on your agenda today didn't result from the shared stewardship, but it truly shows the emphasis on working together that we all do. We're going to be talking about research. We're going to be talking about good neighbor and joint chiefs. We're talking about state and private forestry and its role, as well as you're going to see that the overview of the pilot project on the Upper Wenatchee. And again, all of these things, while it wasn't directly shared stewardship memorandum of understanding, it truly shows and epitomizes what shared stewardship is. So the MOU was there basically to remind us to go further, to push ourselves a little bit harder, and to document our core principles. I told you that that agreement was part of the past federal administration. And as you go forward, really, there was a lot of discussions among all of us at the state and federal level as to what did that mean. And really what it came down to was, is it whether it doesn't matter who is the leader within the administration. Where it did matter is all of us that were on the ground, how we interpreted it. A lot of folks have heard me make the statement, we took the capital S's in shared stewardship and returned them to the lowercase that they were before. Shared stewardship is still here, whether the MOU is an official action of the federal government or not. But the U.S. Forest Service under Chief Christensen's leadership has really continued to embrace that shared stewardship memorandum and all of the principles that laid out for us and put on paper for us to kind of coalesce around. So the bottom line for us now is we're looking to continue our work with partners, to reach out, to take our resources and start focusing them around the work that was done related to the Forest Action Plan. And as you know, by de facto, the Forest Action Plan containing our strategies here in Washington State. So a lot of emphasis is being placed on that. And that is truly that core, what is the MOU's relevance to us? It's the reminder of what we have and what we want to continue expanding on as we go forward. And you know, a lot of the shared stewardship discussion even included the discussion that you're seeing going on in our legislature right now. I'm sure many of you on this virtual meeting have seen and heard all of the legislative hoopla around a piece of legislation that's going through right now, the House Bill 1168. But really, 1168, if you look at it, no matter what is being put into the media and all, it really boils down to the implementation of the Forest Action Plan, our forest health strategies, and our wildfire strategies, which again are founded and have their foundation in the principles of shared stewardship. And you know, if you look at that, you think, well, shared stewardship, it all boils down to Forest Action Plan, shared stewardship, and you know, basically three words that you have not heard me say, but I continue to utilize as the foundation behind all of those, a national cohesive fire strategy, which again sets up the focus on our landscapes, our communities, and how we manage fire in the state. So, you know, it sets up, if you look at the legislation, it really distills and boils down to legislative appropriations framework to help to restore the forest, our wildlife habitat, protect the communities, and then prepare ourselves to suppress and manage wildfire more effectively. And that is, again, going back to those core principles that you find in Forest Action Plan and the Shared Stewardship Memorandum of Understanding. So where are we building from and where are we going from here? You know, we utilize shared stewardship in our everyday lives as far as engagement on many projects. And for us at DNR, we're looking at how we make strategic investments and how we encourage strategic partnerships. It helps to focus our efforts and to focus our resources so that we can make best use of those to make landscape scale restoration efforts and communities more effective, safer, and more resilient. So for us, we're focusing on our delivery. You're going to hear a little bit, I'm sure, from Trevor when he speaks about Good Neighbor Authority on the importance of how that program has progressed and improved over the years and what its goals are based upon truly landscape scale restoration. You're going to hear a lot of discussion, especially swirling at the legislative point, but even within our own agency, legislation or not, about how we better focus on small forest landowners and how we make sure that we're doing landscape scale work when a lot of them are owning anywhere from the 20 to 100 acres model. And we want to make certain that we are giving them the ability to conserve their working lands and work to address one of our issues, which was the loss of forest land. We want to keep those working. And finally, you know, we look through further discussions as we go forward. Shared stewardship has allowed us and given us the framework to work within a lot of these, with a lot of these partners. But even over the last few months, it's a matter of what are we doing within shared stewardship to truly address the loss of forest lands or the health crises that we face. And it has taken me back to actually, which actually is kind of ironic for me lately, especially speaking to this group, having discussions with legislators over what does conservation and preservation mean? And what does that mean as far as having our working forest lands available to us in such a way that they are not at risk from conversion? Which has meant that I'm actually bringing people like Gifford Pinchot and John Muir into a conversation and going that far back to really have some of these discussions about what we want to do as a state going forward. And what I will hear is that shared stewardship is thrown up as, well, we want to work under shared stewardship. So I think people have heard the words, which causes greater emphasis on the ability to engage with them. And I'm looking forward to some of the discussions as we implement our forest action plan and have some of those, yes, philosophical discussions over the work that we're going to be doing. And for us, having the forest action plan, having the shared stewardship memorandum of understanding just provides us with the framework to do all of that and have it in a space where we have all of our partners at the table. So for us, it's very key and foundational to a lot of what we do. So with that, I am available for questions. I did notice that it looks like Vicki has been able to join in also. So Andy, it's up to you.
Well, thank you very much, George. I don't see any questions in the chat for you right now, but if anyone has questions for George, either now or later, maybe we can address those. But thank you very much. That was an excellent summary of our MOU and the plan.